Let's settle for Ghana Briefs.
The Electoral Commission will open nominations for the 2024 presidential and parliamentary elections on Monday, September 9. The nomination period will close on Friday, September 13. The Commission says this process is in accordance with the 2020 Public Elections Regulation CI 127. The Commission hopes to register at least 50,000 new voters onto the electoral roll in the next 3 days.
The applicants are trickling in one after the other. They walk in, they register, they take their data, they print their card and give them, and they walk away. Everything is under control. There is no hiccups or challenges along the line.
President Akufo-Addo has described the recent Ijapade document as a baseless document and a clear attempt to mislead and create distrust. Speaking at the Ghana Report Summit under the theme dealing with misinformation and disinformation in the upcoming election, President Akufo-Addo called on Ghanaians to reject fake news.
Misinformation and disinformation are challenges that require collective action. By working together, government, media, civil society, political parties, and the public, we can create an environment where truth prevails and our democracy thrives.
The Assurances Committee of Parliament has directed the Health Minister to provide a report on the procurement of spare parts for some 307 ambulances by next week. Chairman of the committee, Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, citing an Auditor General report, stated that Services Ghana Auto Limited, at the time of being awarded the said contract, was not a registered company, but won the deal under dubious means.
Who signed the contract? Have you seen the contract?
Whatever is required of us, once there are documents or activities that we as a ministry have engaged in, we will make it available.
So can we get a copy of the contract? We want to see a copy of this $34.9 million contract.
Honorable Chair, any document which is a public document executed on our books is for public record. It is only if it is not a record executed within my end that will suffer difficulty. But otherwise, we don't have a problem with that.
The Ghana Gas Company Limited has assured the public that its scheduled maintenance work over the next couple of weeks will not impact power generation in the country. According to the company's management, adequate arrangements have been made to ensure a continuous supply of gas to the various power generation plants during this period.
We'll want to assure the general public that there's not going to be an interruption with any power generation for the country, because we made an alternative lean gas which is going to flow from Sankofa OCTP, which will be available for delivery for TDC, Takoradi Distribution Station, for Abuazi Thermal Plant for power generation.
Well, this is Ghana Tonight. There's more news on 3news.com. Can you make some time and visit 3news.com? And as we go on, I'll tell you other ways that we've explored here on TV3 for you, our viewers, to connect with us and get up-to-the-minute news updates every step of the way. But coming up next, the security of election 2024 is on the front burner tonight because the National Security Minister has been raising some concerns about issues related to security and the fear of some possible electoral violence going into election 2024. And the stakes of this election, which is over 120 days away from now, is crucial very high. National Security Minister Albert Kandapa is aware of this. He's saying that he's worried about the dwindling trust in the judicial system amongst political parties going into this election. Addressing a forum on violent extremism and peace ahead of the 2024 election, he says sentiments amongst most of the leading political parties' players indicate a depreciating trust in the court to discharge justice if there's going to be an election dispute in the 2024 election. Take a look.
It has the ability to undermine the beauty of our democracy. Yes, we have succeeded as a country in ensuring a transition of power from one political party to another on more than 2 occasions since the inception of the Fourth Republic. The electoral processes leading to the transitions have not been devoid of pockets of violence. I must acknowledge, however, that the decisions by political parties to resort to the courts to address their grievances over electoral outcomes have aided in preventing a full-blown electoral crisis. The 2024 general elections will certainly test the strength of our democracy. Our ability to prevent electoral violence, given the high stakes involved, where the 2 major political parties appear convinced about their prospects of emerging victorious. That obviously creates a security challenge for me, where I sit. We may, for the first time, experience a situation where none of the major political parties will be willing to explore the courts to address their grievances. And indeed, I've heard some senior people in the political space saying that they have lost faith in the court's ability to address their concerns when it comes to elections. So, this can create a situation that can set the stage for chaos. And it underscores the need for us to build a robust and transparent electoral system where results coming from same will be acceptable by all parties as a way of guaranteeing peace before, during, and after the elections. Of course, instituting measures to insulate the state against the threat of terrorism, taking steps to boost the confidence of the citizenry in the potency of democracy to yield expected dividends, and implementing mechanisms to uphold the sanctity of the electoral process to prevent electoral violence and also preserve the peace and stability of Ghana.
So that's the National Security Minister, Albert Kandapa, and it was worth we hearing the full complement of exactly what he said so we get the full context right. And let's just subject this to some conversation because the issues he raises there are germane, to say the least. Colonel Festus Aboagye is retired. He's a security analyst. He's joining us on Zoom for a quick conversation on this matter. Colonel Festus Aboagye, appreciate your time here on Ghana Tonight. This is coming from the National Security Minister. His diagnosis of the temperature going into this election is that leading persons within at least the 2 major political parties have expressed lack of confidence in the judiciary to dispense justice if there should be an electoral dispute. And that for him is a recipe for concern. You share same?
Well, I may not have that feeling because I'm not party to, these 2 political parties. But let me point out that, at least for me, and I've spoken to a couple of other officers, it's a bit strange that recently the National Security Minister and the ministry are making pronouncements that we haven't seen or heard before. Remember, we're over 30 years into this republic. And I don't think any one of us can recall when a national security minister, not long ago, made a statement about judicial decisions always going one way, which I think he or some other people labeled as unanimous FC. And then now he's coming out again to point this thing out. Now, what we know from the security sector is that on a routine basis, there are all manner of assessments made of the health of the security and stability and governance of a state. There must be good reasons why the minister is saying what he's saying that you and I do not know. So, as the Akanse, whatever this Obomochichie is, comes from the water hole to tell you that the crocodile, calves, you should not doubt it. You see it. But if you look for other pieces of evidence, superficial, those that we can observe empirically, then we begin to side with the minister or agree with the minister. Now, one of such reports will come from the Afrobarometer report just a couple of weeks ago, if I'm not mistaken. I was searching for it, I couldn't find it. But let's look at the perception of Ghanaians as to the trust they have in the courts, in the judiciary. And you realize that the courts don't score very well. So the Ghanaians have the perception, and perception is reality, that the courts cannot be trusted. Of course, there are other pieces of evidence like Aremiyao's, video, where you can even buy justice with one goat and those kinds of things. So in any case, the court or the judiciary cannot claim, to be righteous, but Afrobarometer is one. Then we have instances where, and I find it a bit disturbing, where a sitting president, democratically elected, knows the constitutional electoral rules, comes public to say that he will never hand over power to a certain party. And that same rhetoric is repeated probably before him by one of his executives. Now, the interpretation will be that even if we lose and you go to the courts cannot redeem you. You see it? That could be one interpretation. So the situation is not being held by those who should mean well and guard the statements that they make in public, and not just say things that will undermine, the confidence and trust, that people, have in them.
Right.
Then let's look at 2012 and let's look at 2020. Now, 2012-2020 gave us a historical experience where both parties have suffered defeats, electoral defeats, and gone to court and have been seriously upset, dissatisfied, unhappy with the ruling of the courts. Now, in 2012, the MPP had good reasons why they didn't believe the ruling of the courts. In 2020, the NDC also had good reasons. Now, what are those reasons? There's something that the two parties know that we don't know. So if this time both of them are saying that even if we lose or will not accept any ruling that pronounces us as, defeated, I think they have good reasons to be saying that. And therefore, the national minister's, warning or admonition must be taken seriously.
The national security minister's warning or admonition must be taken seriously. And it's on that word what you just ended with, that I want us to quickly end this conversation, because if you look at what the National Security Minister says specifically, I'm going to put that on the screen right now, that specific quote from what I just played to you directly indicates that, well, you have these political parties who have consistently indicated their position about judicial outcomes. And you made reference to what the National Security Minister said sometime in 2022. This is it, about certain rulings in the Supreme Court and the perception that it sends, that when injustice abounds, particularly in situations where the bench, which is considered the final arbiter of disputes, is deemed biased, citizens tend to take the law into their own hands, most times without recourse to established systems of justice delivery. If the interpretation of the law is tilted in our favor, all the time, people will start accusing the judiciary and will not have the confidence that they need. That's another concern that he raised. This was 2 years ago, specifically in April 2022, coming on the back of what we've just heard from him as well. Beyond this caution, he's well aware in his mind what could happen, what should be done going forward. We have some 127 days ahead of this election.
So I would wish to, encourage all Ghanaians, of course, the NCCs, the National Peace Council, the clergy, what do you call them? The Muslims on the other side, all of them have a role to play, so that we have free, fair elections, and we don't, for God's sake, elect persons who are not qualified to govern us, and then our lives become more miserable than they should have been. There have been certain fora or forums where I think at the instance of the National Peace Council, the political parties have been brought together and have been encouraged to commit themselves to accepting results. But Alfred, when we make a committal, we make the committal on the basis of assumptions being valid. So both political parties will say, okay, I will accept the outcome of the elections. Then they will post a caveat that it's free, it's fair, and it's transparent. And you and I know that there are many reasons why our elections are not very transparent, and they are not free, and they are not fair. So I think nobody should compel anybody for the sake of what we are calling national peace and stability, to accept results that they themselves know they have, rigged. So the primary responsibility on the part of all of us is to ensure that we are fair,
right,
and we are true to the processes. We cast our votes and nobody miscounts them or undercounts them or whatever it is.
Okay.
Then if you are declared, a loser, like a football match, where the referee and the assistant referees are very fair, it pains that you have lost. But don't go around attacking the referee, because the referee has been fair.
Right.
But from all the things that I've said, all of us have a responsibility. First of all, the EC's scorecard when it comes to integrity is very, very low. The court's scorecard is also very, very low. The executive is very low. In fact, the other thing that no one can explain is that within each administration, the ruling party is always on the side of the EC. Why? When the EC must be neutral. When is NDC in power, NDC is supporting the EC. When is NPP in power, NPP is supporting the EC. Why should it be like that? So both of these parties, and indeed all the political actors, also have a role to play.
Indeed. Colonel Professor Sobajiri retired. I thank you very much for your expert diagnosis of what we're faced with right now and how crucial it is going forward, what we have to do to ensure that this election is truly free, fair, and transparent. I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. And still staying with the Electoral Commission here on your Election Command Center. we're heavy on matters of election tonight because September 9 marks an important date on the calendar of the Electoral Commission. And that means a lot for aspirants as well who intend to vie for the presidential and parliamentary elections. Today, the Electoral Commission is opening nominations. And we're going to give you the details of all of this shortly and why this is one that a number of these aspirants are looking at quite closely, and the specific dates and the amounts that they would have to just put together. Take a look at this. The Electoral Commission says if you're a presidential candidate, you should get ready to put out some 100,000 CDs for the presidential nomination. Between 9th and September 13th, they're going to receive the presidential and parliamentary nominations. So for presidential, 100,000 CDs. Then for female candidates and persons with disability, 75,000 CDs. For parliamentary nomination, that's for parliamentary candidates, 10,000 CDs filing fee. And for female parliamentary candidates and persons with disability, 7,500 CDs. So that's what the Electoral Commission has put out in a statement issued earlier today. And let's just put it on record that this filing fee is the same that was charged in 2020. So they've just maintained the filing fee for the presidential and parliamentary that we charge in 2020 in 2024. The Electoral Commission did not explain exactly why they decided to maintain it, but this is it. The likes of APC, Dr. Hassan Ariaga says, this is too expensive. 100,000 CDs because it's what? I want to contest to be president. He wants it to be reduced to 10,000 CDs. And for the parliamentary aspirants, 1,000 CDs. Now, we're going to hear from him shortly. But Mustafa Gbande is Deputy General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress, NDC. He's joining us on Zoom. So I appreciate your time on Ghana Tonight. Do you share in that same concern that likes of Dr. Hassan Ayaga is raising, that this 100,000 CDs filing fee for presidential candidates is too expensive?
Basically, the amount that the Electoral Commission have quoted is the same amount political parties filed in 2020 general election. We are all aware that on a normal day, the price should go up. But the reverse is the case. We are now feeling the impact, the negative impact of the economy, to the extent that this is the period that political class is feeling it. It used to be the ordinary Ghanaian whose salary remained static in the last 7.5 years. Today, if you had to take a car from Accra to Bolgatanga, you have to pay 416. And so if political parties will have to cough 100,000 and they don't have it because of the excruciating economic conditions that we face, then you cannot blame the Electoral Commission. You can lay the blame at the doorstep of the president and the vice president, who are not prepared to be responsible in terms of fixing the economy. We all know that the economy has crashed. Not by mistake, because the economy is on autopilot. It is free for all. Ghanaians must fight for themselves. But in the right sense, that is not the essence of governance. Government is supposed to save the people from their burdens. But today, that is not the case. And so I'm not surprised that political parties are complaining. But the NDC doesn't have an outright position on this matter yet. I will consult with upward leadership, and then when that decision is reached, we'll communicate. But in the meantime, we just believe that it is a manifestation of the hardship that we face. It is manifesting the difficulty that Ghanaians are going through.
Right.
It just simply shows that we are pressed up, people are depressed. It just shows that businesses are collapsed.
But Mustafa, you just indicated, in fact, as I said earlier, that this is the filing fee that the Electoral Commission charged political parties in 2020. They've maintained that in 2024. I want to find out why you were blaming this decision by the EC to maintain this filing fee at the doorstep of the president and the vice president. Why?
Well, when EC have maintained the value, one would say that EC is rather sympathizing with us, because how much was a gallon of fuel in 2016? And how much is a gallon of fuel today? How much was a bundle of paper, A4 sheet, in 2016? How much does it cost today? In the right sense, the prices should rather go up. EC have maintained the figure, but because the burden, the impact is affecting Ghanaians and political classes, it is difficult for even political parties to come by 100,000 to file for a presidential aspirant. And so that is a clear evidence of our deteriorating economic situation. The Ghanaians that were complaining, nobody was listening to them. If the farmer was telling you that a cutlass which used to be sold at 30 Ghana cedis is today about 200 Ghana cedis, Alfred, you wouldn't believe until a political class is complaining today. The poor Ghanaian who would have to travel paying 416 Ghana cedis from Accra to Bolgatanga complains. The vice president and the president says that, no, you are happy people, we have worked so much. Today, political parties and the political class is complaining.
Okay.
Teachers and nurses and journalists like yourself who queue to buy fuel at a high price complain, but nobody listened. Today, the political class is complaining.
Well, so
the civil servants who buy milk and milk.
So here's what I want to find out, and quickly. Every time, at least, I've been alive and quite consistent with how political parties react when the Electoral Commission announces these fees. At least from 2004 to date, every time the Electoral Commission puts up this filing fee, the political parties come up and say it's too expensive. You end up paying eventually. So why exactly do you cry about this? I mean, and specific to the NDC, and if you do align with the concerns that the other political parties have raised as well?
We haven't said it is too much. NDC haven't said it is too much or it is less.
I see.
I've just said that that decision is one that I'll have to consult further with leadership. But I do know, and I'm authorized to say that political parties are not complaining because they are not willing to pay, because they don't have. They are feeling the impact of the economic hardship. So in this case, I'm not holding Electoral Commission to the ground. No, I think the Electoral Commission have been lenient with us because the cost of administrative overheads have increased exponentially because we have reckless leaders in power. The cost of running election is expensive because you have irresponsible people in power. And so if government is not responsible, it is the citizens that will pay for the misbehavior of government officials. And that is a typical example of what we are going through. And so if Electoral Commission revises and pegs a cost as of 2020 to today, ordinarily, people should be comfortable. Political parties should be excited, but they are complaining because they don't have the money.
Mustafa, appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. Mustafa Bande is Deputy General Secretary of the NDC. This is Dr. Asani who is the presidential candidate for the APC, All People's Congress, also complaining about this. You know what? This is too expensive. Take a look.
Country to the highest bidder? Or are you talking about we looking for people with more brains than more money? Because what I see the Electoral Commission do now is that they're looking for Ghanaians who have more money than more brains. And I have consistently complained that 100,000 Ghana cedis for filing fee for presidential and 10,000 for parliamentary is too much for the Ghanaian citizen. It's not about me as Hassan Ayerga. It's about the entire nation and the citizenry. What is the income of an ordinary Ghanaian, public worker or private worker? Even a minister. It's less than 15,000 Ghana cedis. If a public servant wants to contest for the presidency of the Republic of Ghana, he has to cough 100,000 Ghana cedis. How many public servants today, as we speak, have saved up to 100,000 Ghana cedis in their accounts. So the fact of the matter is that the Electoral Commission is not willing to practice multi-party democracy, but rather they want to sell Ghana to the highest bidder. And that's what I am against. I think that looking at our statistics of salary in public worker income in Ghana, it will not be bad for the Electoral Commission to perch it at 5,000 to 10,000 Ghana cedis.
So that's an area got there. It proposes 5,000, 10,000 cedis for presidential and 1,000 cedis for parliamentary. Well, we'll see what the other political parties will say about this, but this is your election command center, Ghana Tonight. Let's still stay on the issues of elections because hot on the plate coming through just some few minutes ago on Ghana Tonight, the latest poll by Global Info Analytics shows that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is losing grounds in the Ashanti region. This is coming up next here on Ghana Tonight, and this is one that we're looking at quite closely and exactly why Global Info Analytics posted this way. So the results of a tracking poll that just came through from Global Info Analytics shows that the New Patriotic Party's flag bearer, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, has slumped from 73% to 65% in the Ashanti region after Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh was selected as running mate. And why the linkage will tell you exactly why this is the linkage and why this is actually very important in doing the analysis going forward, especially because it was quite clear that the MPP made that decision to choose Dr. Matthew Opoku Prempeh specifically to galvanize the base of the party in its stronghold. How's that working? That's why Musa Dankwa went back there. We'll be finding out from him a bit more detail into this latest poll. As you see there, the 1st of August, it just came through minutes ago, today. Ashanti Regional Opinion Poll, this is the second poll that Global Info Analytics is doing in the Ashanti region. If you flip to the other specific instances that we see, this talks about the education background of all these persons that were surveyed. Now, I want you to look at this, the party affiliations of the persons who were surveyed. 50.43% of the total survey, that's the sample size, were MPP, 20.32% NDC, and some 15.99% floating voters. And then also you have a little over 2% being other political parties, and some 11.2% said they would not disclose their party affiliations. So that's to just give you an idea of the composition in terms of the vote, the affiliations of the persons who took part in this survey. Now look at the constituency, MPP constituencies that he focused on, from Afano Southwest, Adansia Sokwa Katie Hamon's constituency, the Jabin constituency near Dubiasi, Ofinso North, Ahafo, Anon North, Obuasis. All these constituencies are in the Ashanti region, heavy for the MPP. The other question that is of interest, if you look at it quite closely, is the attention that these persons who were surveyed are paying to the presidential election. A lot of them say they are doing so, 46.2%. First-time voters, just about 11.89%, and over 88% of these respondents to the survey are people who have been voting. They are not first-time voters as well, as we see. Then, the next question that was asked, would you say things in this country today are generally heading in the right direction or wrong direction? The 47% of them say, yes, it is heading towards the right direction. 48%, this is in the Ashanti region, the stronghold of the MPP, says it's heading towards the wrong direction. And 5% say they don't have an opinion on whether it's heading towards the right direction or the wrong direction. Musa Dankwa is joining us in a bit on Zoom for a quick conversation on this. Musa, appreciate your time here on Ghana Tonight. And I see that all of this points to a particular direction. And first of all, let's establish what the sample size is for this latest poll and the details that we've just had. Musa Dankwa.
Thank you very much. for having me. The sample size was 1,000.
Kindly put your video on for me, please.
Okay, just give me 1 second now.
Okay, while we are at it, as Musa Dankwa will fix that connection to him, and so we have a clear understanding. They did that comparison to the year before. The following best describe the standard of living. The respondents were there. Zadankwa is joining us, Global Analytics Executive Director. Zadankwa, you answered the question about exactly what the sample size was for this one?
Yeah, the sample size is 1,392 for this sample. Interviews were conducted from last week around 28 till this morning.
I see. And one interesting fact that I see that, at least based on the outcome that you put out in this poll, is a question of the likely impact of Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh on the voting for the MPP in the December election. Now, based on the comparison that you do in the July 4 poll that you did, just when Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh was announced as a running mate, you see that there's been a drop.
Yes,
July, there was 62% who said because of Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, they'll vote for the MPP. On August 1, just about a month later, it's dropped to 58%. What did you say in there? Why did they tell you the decision to not now go on the other path that they were on July 4?
With voters, and during the first round of the poll, we saw a high number of people saying that they will be influenced by that. Fast forward to today, you could see that that number has dropped by 4 percentage points. And then those who are unlikely has jumped from 21 to 29%. And those that are neutral has also dropped. So you could see probably momentum slowing down the region with regards to voting for the MPP because of Napoleon, because of Napo.
But that was the major reason why he was chosen, is it not? To galvanize the base of the party in the stronghold of the party, the Ashanti region.
Yes, I think the euphoria hasn't lasted long. And probably, if you look at the aftermath of his speech and what followed it, probably that may have accounted for what we are seeing in the polls now in the region.
But then I want to make sense of the previous slide I just showed, which indicates a 4 percentage drop in those who say that because of Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, they're going to vote for the MPP. And then this one that you asked the question, which of the following running mates do you believe can do a better job as vice president? And then you have 62.45% of the respondents saying Dr. Matthew Opoku-Prempeh can do a good job, as against 20.67% who say Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman will do a great job. How do we reconcile these two positions?
Yeah, this question this is the first time we're asking that question in the region, so we don't have a comparison data to compare or little to compare. But clearly, you can see that is among the between Napoleon or between Napo and Jenana is quite overwhelmingly preferred to be the best president, do a better job. But as to whether they will vote for you, that's another thing to see. Slight difference between preference to be something and actually voting for you. If you look at where it's now, the number is not far from what DMB eventually gets in the poll. So probably that is in line.
I see. But overall, what's the message in there, Mr. Dankwa, for this?
The message is that the chosen running mate hasn't had the effect that probably they anticipate he would have. If this is what is coming from the region, and I don't know what else is happening elsewhere.
I see. But then again, you asked a question about which of the following parties' candidates do you intend to vote for? This for presidential. That's the 2024 parliamentary elections. The number of them, 21.6% said NDC, NPP 64.1%. But for the presidential, we also see a dip in the respondents for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. I mean, what accounted for this, based on your interactions and your study of that outcome?
You know, there has been a movement in the floating voters in the Ashanti region between the first poll and this second poll. You see that the floating voters in the region have shifted a bit away from DMB. You have about 5.5% of them, Muhammad getting an increase of 5.5% compared to last period among floating voters. And that's among Bamia going down 16.6% among the same floating voters. And Alan making a gain of 13.2%. So that is a huge movement in the numbers with regard to floating voters. And then if you look at the younger or even old voters by age, and you compare what Baumia had last time and what he's having this time, you'll see that he's declined about 7.8% among 18 to 24 years old, declined 10.7% between 25 to 34 years old, another 10% between 35 and 44 years old, and 2% or 2.9% among 45 to 54 years old, and also declined by 15% among people who are above 54 years.
But then again,
so
the argument will be that we have some 127 days thereabout to election 2024, December 7. That's a long time to change or swing the pendulum in the stronghold of the party. Now, did you ask the question of whether there's a possibility of a change of mind, at least amongst the persons you surveyed?
I think that there is a question, I don't know whether we captured it in this report, but largely we have seen across board, people are firming up with their choices in terms of who they want to vote for. About 86.6% of the people we spoke to in Ashanti region, in fact, said that they made up their mind.
Right.
Only 3.5 are saying that they may change their mind or they are likely to change their mind, and 9.9 are neutral. Now, if you are leading quite big in that region and you have this number, that should be a good news for you.
I see.
But if you look at where the MPP wants to be and where it is now, this chunk of people saying they've made up their mind, they may really struggle to get that 85% that they set for themselves in the region.
Zadanko, I appreciate your time on this, and I thank you so much for coming through here on Ghana Tonight. And this poll, the full complement of it is on 3news.com shortly. It was released this evening for just some 20 minutes ago, and you'll have it right here on Ghana Tonight, exclusively here on your election command center. Still staying with the elections, the Electoral Commission is mopping up the persons, eligible voters, who could not register in previous registration periods, and they're targeting some 50,000 persons to do so. Earlier today, my colleague Noble Crosby Annan was at one of the centers where this mop-up exercise is going on. He spoke to a number of people there. Take a look.
I came to do my registration for the upcoming election. Right in the middle of the process. I've come in. I missed the first one because I was not in the country. So this time around, I was told day before yesterday that it will be reopened from the 1st, the 2nd, and the 3rd. So I've come in to do my registration. I'm right in the middle of it. I brought with me my Ghana card, which of course was essential, that it needed to be with me.
I'm here to have my voters registration since I wasn't able to do it for the first time. So that's why I'm here.
I came in to register because I wasn't here before. I was not able to register before.
What questions are they asking you?
Where I live and have I voted before and all that, yeah.
I was not able to register when I was in school, so I came back to register over here.
Let's start registration. Then now, I'm 18 years here. It's I'm 18 years. I'm going to my registration.
Now, by your name?
Me by cool.
it says it's cool. And it's one that we'll keep an eye on as well here in your Election Command Center in the coming days. Coming up next show on Ghana Tonight, all is not within at least the confines and the borders of the University of Cape Coast. There's a lot happening there. All is not well. There's so much confusion. And at least in the last 24 hours, we've seen 4 different letters addressing the same issue in different ways. The purported termination of the appointment of the University of Cape Coast Vice Chancellor. Well, the University Council plus the UTAG of UCC saying they do not agree with that said termination. Stay with us. There's something we found. We'll be back shortly.
One bucket of Flamingo paint is equal to several buckets of any other paint brand on the market. Flamingo paint, superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage. Flamingo paint, simply superior. You know, one bucket of Flamingo paint is equal to several buckets of any other paint brand on the market. Flamingo paint, superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage. Flamingo paint, simply superior.
75 days since the last day of last season. We are ready to do it all again. Phil Foden is having the season of his life. Brilliant! Just brilliant! That is quite something!
Watch all the Premier League, La Liga and Serie A games on DSTV Compact for only 300 cedis a month.
Everybody knows Akufo-Addo. And if you know Akufo-Addo, it means you know M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic is my pillar. Let's hear what others are saying about M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. Who will be careful M-Punch one?
Chese na me ankasa me period na se problems wom ntina ma wo ho idea ma me papa chese na nya asem ketewa na me coin point no mo hwe me modem no mo hwe bibia na so mo meduro me fire no ene ma won kura mienu foforo kwa na mkwan mu a eba and everything yourself
me ma me no adwodwo eda ho a wontumi nante ene ne ko end point o mama nuru a ene ne ho eden a watimi asori anante.
That's end point for you. Akufo-Addo. Hello. Hey, ohwehwe what che? Okay. A free bra wo di end point wa dance am me call you no me Jones sema na enkoyie empeso na maye mre nyina na magina sabema na me be fie for there e ho na nyina jaresa. You heard everything. I have secret. M-Punch is my secret. M-Punch Homeopathic Clinic. I'm free.
Star 712.
Picture this. Coming in Greece. Yeah, and now you were back in Greece. To say why you fit out millionaire. Yes, the luckiest at the room. To say about from Massa man. Yeah. Now check this. Sister Abna, aka Kobe Hima. The luckiest at the room. Queen B. Yeah. Boss lady back up there. Let's go. Hold on to your seats, folks. Such anyway, it'll be you smooth. Where you enter your friend will upgrade. Luckiest and aroma. And the best part that with the luckiest will be our shot to a good life. And I'm talking to you, me, your girlfriend, your ex, your neighbors, your landlords, and even Goro boys. And no one is over dialing with lucky number. Star 712. No.
Oswald ticket to win in the community draw or the grand draw on the 30th of November 2024. The luckiest is regulated by the NLA on the Caritas platform, not for persons below 18 years. TNCs apply.
Welcome back. This is Ghana Tonight. Some members of the University of Cape Coast Governing Council, they've disassociated themselves from the purported termination of the renewal of appointment of the Vice-Chancellor, Professor Johnson Nyako-Bwampong. The chairman of the council had written a letter to the Vice-Chancellor purporting to revoke the renewal of his appointment by the council. And that's coming up next. But this letter has now been challenged by the Vice-Chancellor himself, on one hand, some members of the council, on the other hand, plus a UTAG, University Teachers Association of Ghana, UCC branch, and other members of the university as well, challenging the authority of the University Council's chair for Suomoto issuing this statement of termination. Now, let's give you a chronology of events and how things have unfolded, right? And this is it. On 17th of June 2020, the University Council appointed Professor Johnson Nyako Boampong as Vice-Chancellor, effective August 1, 2020, and then July 31, which is yesterday, 2024. Now, the Governing Council in July 2023 met to renew the appointment of the Vice-Chancellor for 2 more years, effective August 1, 2024. Now, here's what happened afterwards. One, John Mevemio described the resident as the resident of Kaswa, actually sued the UCC and Professor Johnson Nyako Boampong, seeking to restrain him from holding himself as Vice-Chancellor. And in fact, this case is still running in court. And this case was filed yesterday, July 31. And that same day yesterday, the chairman of the council, Professor H.S. Amono, writes to Professor Johnson Nyako in a notice of termination of appointment. And this is what the other members of the University of Cape Coast Council, the Governing Council, are saying they are not aware of any letter of termination as issued by and signed by the chairman of the University Council. So, what's all this? Samuel Danso Akoto is the alumni rep on the UCC Governing Council, is one of the signatories to another statement that we got today. So I could appreciate your time here on Ghana Tonight. What's all this confusion?
Well, so like you already said, the Vice-Chancellor's appointment was renewed by the former council in 2013. So the laws permit that when the Vice-Chancellor's 4-year term ends and he has age on his side, he can apply for further 3 years. With this Vice-Chancellor, he had, I think, 2 years to go. He's 58 now. So he applied to council to renew his appointment for 2 years. Council actually granted him. It was granted by a council so well constituted. We debated, it even went on vote, and 9 out of 13 members of council actually voted that his appointment be renewed. 0 actually voted against, and 4 abstained. So his appointment was validly renewed. Then comes a new council, and this matter has never been raised on any of our meetings. It has never surfaced anywhere. Even before the appointment of the current council chair, we heard rumors that that is what he's appointed to come and perpetrate. I mean, like I said, it's just rumors. Some media houses even called me, and I said I'm not going to speak to it because I don't act on rumors. So this council was constituted, like I said, 7 months ago. We have had meetings. This issue has never come up. 3 days ago, we had an emergency meeting, and that emergency meeting was supposed to be as a result of the fact that we were supposed to appoint a new registrar because the current registrar is retiring. And the committees were came to council. Council couldn't take a decision because there were 1 or 2 issues with the committee's report. So we actually mandated the current registrar to continue in office for the next 3 months, even though he's 60 and is retiring, so that we would use the period to find a new registrar. Then GTEC wrote to us that because he's 60, we cannot renew his appointment. So the current registrar should immediately hand over to the Vice-Chancellor, and the Vice-Chancellor should take steps to ensure that an acting registrar is appointed, and then a substantive registrar is appointed.
Just want to establish this. So I'm sure you meant 2023 when you had earlier mentioned 2013. And so he is 58. The current Vice Chancellor is 58. You've extended it to his tenure 2 years, so when he's 60, he can retire and go. But are you purporting that the council chair was appointed specifically to mastermind the removal of this Vice Chancellor we're talking about?
I cannot say that. Like what I know or what I can speak to is that before his appointment, there were rumors in the media. I read some that this is and there's, you see, there is I don't think it's in law, but there's a policy that normally you don't appoint somebody, a former member of a certain university, to become the council chairman because he might have, let me say, enemies, he might have people he has cause to settle with. So you don't really appoint such people to become chairman because they definitely would want to show people where the power lies and all that. So I am sure based on that, people actually, there were publications, some media houses even called me and I said, look, the man has not done anything wrong for me to suspect that he's coming to do anything, so I will not speak to it. So there was that rumor already. Then we come to council, and throughout, certain actions have actually shown that that is what he wanted to do by all means.
I see.
Certainly tried to bring the issue up. Council member rejects to discuss this issue. Council members actually reject to discuss this issue. Then you go to sleep and you alone write a letter that you have actually annulled the decision of the former council. But you know that the decision of council is taken by majority. So if you have any problem, bring it to council, let's discuss. And again, one of the 19th Constitution says that if anybody, or any person alleges that something has been done, an act or omission against the Constitution or contravention of the Constitution, such a person should actually go to the Supreme Court to seek declaration to that effect.
Right.
I mean, you have the power to do that. So you have two routes. You bring to council to deliberate, and a majority decision holds. Or if you think that it is still unlawful, you go to the Supreme Court to seek interpretation. And the matter is even before the Supreme Court. So why are you in a hurry to?
Well, Mr. Akoto, appreciate your time here on Ghana Tonight. Samuel Akoto is the representative of the alumni of University of Cape Coast on the University's Council. They have now crossed swords with the chair of the same council who signed the letter communicating the termination of the appointment of the Vice Chancellor, that the council and UTAG are all saying they don't recognize that letter of termination. In fact, the University Council chair, they say, doesn't have the power to do so. We'll see how things play out at the University of Cape Coast in the coming days. But thank you so much for joining us here on Ghana Tonight. On behalf of the rest of the team, we do appreciate your company. My name is Alfred Ocansey. Have a good night.
Ghana Tonight is brought to you by Flamingo Paint. Superior durability, superior hiding, superior coverage. Simply superior.